Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a really fascinating and frankly quite strange situation unfolding in the gaming world. It's all centered around a game called Paradise.
That's right. This was a title that was marketed and pretty heavily as a potential competitor to, believe it or not, Grand Theft Auto 6.
Which is a massive claim to make. So we've gathered a lot of information here, primarily drawing from the investigations done by a well-known YouTube creator, Cyber. He's done a ton of digging.
He really has. Our goal here is to basically break down the claims made about Paradise, look closely at the evidence Cyberboy and others have presented, suggesting this might be, well, a scam.
And examine the responses, or maybe the lack of clear responses, from the developers, Ultra Games.
Exactly. What's really interesting is how this whole thing taps into that huge anticipation for a game like GTA 6. It sort of plays on those expectations.
Absolutely. We want to see how those hopes can potentially be exploited and, what happens when the marketing just doesn't seem to match the reality being presented.
And this story has so many layers. It's not just about the game itself.
No, not at all. We're talking alleged stolen game assets, claims of celebrity endorsements that seem totally fake.
Right. The crypto element is huge and questionable.
Very questionable. Website content disappearing, then reappearing. It's like a detective story almost, with gamers trying to piece it all together.
It definitely hooks you because it mixes that excitement for a big new game with this undercurrent of potential deception.
Okay, so let's start where Cyberboy did. He started raising some alarms way back in October 2024. What were those initial sort of gut feelings or red flags he picked up on?
Well, the very first signs, as Cyberboy documented, were things that just felt unprofessional, maybe. For instance, the initial contact he received offering payment for promoting the game came from a standard Gmail account.
Not like ultragames.com or something.
Exactly. For a potential AAA title, you'd expect a proper company domain email. It immediately seems a bit, well, low budget or less established.
Ah.
And then there were basic technical things, like signing up on their website didn't even generate a confirmation email. Small detail, maybe, but it points towards a possibly shaky infrastructure.
Right, suggest things aren't quite buttoned up. And the trailers, they were visually impressive, but something was off there too.
Yeah, the trailers mostly showed what looked like pre-rendered cinematics, slick videos, but not necessarily representative of the actual live gameplay experience.
Less what you play, more what we made a video of.
Precisely. Plus, they featured these really detailed models of real-world cars, but seemingly without licenses. That's a huge legal red flag for any legitimate developer.
Ah, okay. And then came the name dropping. That was pretty bold.
Oh, yeah. They threw around names like Ninja, Pokimane, Alia, Loserfruit, Lachlan. Huge names in the streaming world, claiming they were endorsing Paradise.
But they weren't actually involved at all.
Not according to Cyberboy's research, and none of them seem to have mentioned it. Using fake endorsements like that is just a classic way to try and manufacture hype and credibility that isn't really there. It's fundamentally dishonest.
A massive breach of trust from the get-go. And what about the platform partnerships? Epic Games was mentioned.
Right. They implied a close partnership, but initially, Epic Games Support apparently confirmed there was no special partnership beyond just being listed on the Epic Games Store, which any developer can potentially do.
So, suggesting closer ties than actually existed. What about the footage they did show and label as gameplay?
Even that was suspect. It tended to focus heavily on, AI, NPCs just walking around, atmosphere shots, but very little of the core mechanics. You didn't see much shooting, driving in complex situations, missions, the stuff you'd actually do in a GTA-style game.
All sizzle, no steak, maybe?
Kind of felt that way. And worse, some viewers with sharp eyes noticed things that looked lifted directly from GTA 5. The minimap apparently looked incredibly similar, down to the icons.
Wow, okay. That's blatant if true. Now, let's shift to the money aspect. This is where the cryptocurrency angle comes in, and it seems central to the concerns.
Absolutely. This became a major point of suspicion. The developers were really pushing the idea that you could earn cryptocurrency just by playing Paradise, their own specific crypto called XRPL.
And the worry there is, what exactly? For people not deep into crypto.
The main concern is a pump and dump scheme. Basically, you generate massive hype for the game, maybe using fake endorsements, misleading trailers to get people interested in buying the associated cryptocurrency.
Okay.
This demand drives the price of the crypto up, that's the pump. Then the people who got in early, perhaps the developers themselves, sell off their holdings at the inflated price, the dump.
Leaving everyone else holding basically worthless crypto when the price crashes.
Exactly. The game itself might just be a vehicle to facilitate this crypto scheme. And the use of what looked like bot accounts on social media, artificially inflating likes and comments, only added to that suspicion. It looked like they were trying to manufacture buzz.
And Cyberbouet had some odd direct interactions too, right? Something about a password reset.
Yeah, he mentioned receiving a password reset email for his Instagram shortly after interacting with the developers. Now, it's impossible to definitively link it, but the timing was certainly coincidental and raised an eyebrow.
Hmm.
Plus, the offer they made him for promotion was incredibly low, like $50 for a video potentially getting tens of thousands of views. That doesn't scream serious marketing budget.
No, that sounds more like hoping for cheap exposure.
Right. And then other weird details piled up. AI-generated photos supposedly showing the dev team on their website, email replies coming from a Russian domain, even though they claim to be based in Hong Kong. Just lots of inconsistencies.
Okay, so a whole collection of red flags just in those initial months.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop there, did it? Things seemed to escalate between November 2024 and March 2025.
No, definitely not. The concerns just kept mounting. First, they'd announced an early access release for December, but
Yep.
it just never happened. No game, no access. That's a big miss.
Breaking a key promise to the community. That never goes over well.
Never. And then the handling of the cryptocurrency got even stranger, almost comical.
Ah, yes, the crypto roller coaster. What happened there?
Well, around the time they got listed on Steam, which has pretty strict rules against blockchain and crypto in games on its platform, all references to crypto suddenly vanished from the Paradise website.
Okay, seems like they were trying to comply with Steam's rules.
You'd think so. But then, just 11 hours later, the game gets rebranded to Paradise XRPL, and bam, crypto integration is back and being promoted again.
11 hours. That's incredibly fast for a rebrand and policy shift.
It suggests it wasn't a genuine policy change, maybe more like trying to sneak it past Steam initially. And the messaging was all over the place. They apparently told PlayStation and Steam communities no crypto, but hinted to the Epic Games community that it would be integrated there.
Trying to be all things to all platforms,
So,
maybe,
yeah.
while pushing the crypto regardless.
It certainly looked that way. On top of this, they started making these claims that thousands of people were already playing in early access.
But wasn't early access the thing that never actually happened in December?
Exactly. And there was zero proof. No player streams, no screenshots, no forum posts from actual players, just the developers claiming huge numbers out of thin air.
Highly suspicious.
Very. And despite all this, and the fact the early trailers showed very little real gameplay, they confidently announced a full release date for the finished game. April 2nd.
A finished game, launching April 2nd, bold promise. And this is when people started looking really closely at the assets in the trailers, right? The buildings, the objects.
Yes, precisely. This is where the community really started digging. People discovered that many of the environments and props shown looked identical to assets being sold on online marketplaces like Kitbash 3D and the Unreal Engine marketplace.
So pre-made building blocks that anyone can buy.
Essentially, yes. Developers use these all the time. It's normal. But the issue here was twofold. First, some of these assets were very recently released on those marketplaces, suggesting they couldn't have been part of the game's development for long. And second, this directly contradicted the developers' own repeated claims that 95% of the assets in Paradise were original, made by them.
Okay, so the evidence was mounting that they were just assembling store-bought assets.
It strongly pointed in that direction. And faced with this growing public scrutiny, with people posting side-by-side comparisons, Paradise suddenly announced a demo would also be released on April 2nd.
So April 2nd goes from being the full game launch to full game and demo launch. Bit confusing.
Very. And then things got even weirder. The demo actually dropped a day early, April 1st, April Fool's Day, of all days.
Oh, lovely timing.
And it wasn't through Steam or Epic. It came via this relatively unknown launcher called GJGGM.
Okay, and the demo itself.
Yeah.
Did it live up to the GTA killer hype?
Not even remotely. The content was incredibly bare bones. We're talking a couple of small, isolated maps. You could walk around, talk to a few very basic NPCs, drive a car inside an empty garage. That was about it.
No missions, no shooting, no empire building.
Absolutely none of the core features they'd been advertising. It was empty.
And the assets in this demo, did they confirm the marketplace suspicions?
They did, unfortunately. The maps were quickly identified as being built from assets available on the Fab marketplace, again, some quite recently added. It was pretty undeniable proof against their 95% original claim.
So the demo essentially confirmed what people were suspecting.
Pretty much. And then another concerning link emerged. Some people claiming to be community managers for Paradise reportedly mentioned having previously worked for Fantastic.
Wait, the developers of the day before?
The very same. A game infamous for its own misleading marketing, asset flip accusations, and disastrous launch. That connection did not inspire confidence.
No, that's like saying your ship captain previously worked on the Titanic.
Yeah.
What about the launcher itself, the GJGGM thing? Any issues there?
Yes, several concerns were raised. The launcher's website was missing basic things like a privacy policy or terms of service, which is sketchy for any software.
Definitely.
And more alarmingly, users started reporting that the launcher was causing their computers to crash or that it was running with unusually high activity in the background even when the demo wasn't playing.
That sounds potentially problematic, maybe even like spyware or malware concerns.
Those concerns were definitely voiced by the community. And then the way the Paradise team handled community feedback was also telling. During Q&A sessions, they allegedly ignored the top voted questions from players.
The difficult ones, presumably.
Right. And instead, they seemed to answer their own pre-written softball questions to just control the narrative and avoid addressing the serious issues being raised.
Wow. Managing the message instead of addressing the problems.
It appeared that way. Then came another major pivot. They started claiming that this incredibly limited demo was the official launch.
Wait, what? The demo was the game after promising a full release.
That's what they started saying, directly contradicting everything they'd stated before about a full game coming to Steam and Epic. It made no sense.
No kidding.
And just to add to the feeling of it being smoke and mirrors, a user named Denal discovered that the large, impressive-looking city visible in the demo background was just a flat image, basically. A set piece. It had no collision detection. You couldn't actually go into it or interact with it. It was just scenery.
Oh my goodness. So literally a facade.
Literally. And around this time, the platform started reacting more formally. Epic Games put up a very prominent disclaimer on the Paradise store page.
What did it say?
It explicitly stated that Epic Games was not partnered with or associated with Paradise in any special way, beyond just listing the game on their store, a clear attempt to distance themselves.
Understandable, given the circumstances. How did Paradise react to all this negative attention?
Bizarrely, they claim that all the haters and negative press were actually attracting people, saying nearly 1 million users were drawn to the game because of the controversy.
That sounds like spin, to put it mildly.
Highly doubtful. And then they announced a new racing mode, which, surprise, surprise, also seemed to be built using more downloadable marketplace assets.
So it keeps going. And the actual promised full releases on Steam and Epic.
Complete silence. Never materialized. Still haven't, as far as we know. Meanwhile, people watching the crypto markets noticed evidence that key holders of the XRPL token were selling off large amounts during this chaotic launch period.
Which fits the pump and dump theory perfectly.
It certainly aligns with it. And the final nail in the coffin of their credibility, perhaps, was the PEGI ratings board. They handle age ratings in Europe, confirming that no official rating was ever finalized for Paradise, despite the devs claiming they had a PEGI 12 rating earlier.
Just lie after lie, it seems. Okay, let's focus specifically on that crypto angle again. It feels so central to this.
It really does. From the start, the marketing hook was play to earn our crypto, XRPPL. That was the big draw they pushed.
And we saw that weird dance with removing it for Steam, then putting it back almost immediately as Paradise XRPL.
Right, which strongly suggested they were trying to game Steam's rules against crypto integration rather than genuinely changing their model. They were clearly committed to keeping the crypto aspect.
And they explicitly marketed the game as a way to boost the crypto's value.
Yes, repeatedly. It wasn't just play this fun game and maybe earn some crypto. It was framed as play this game to help increase the value of XRPPL. That framing is classic pump and dump territory,
where the game's success is secondary to pumping the token price.
Exactly. The game becomes the marketing tool for the cryptocurrency. We already talked about how that scheme works. Hype the game, pump the crypto price, early holders dump their tokens, later buyers lose out. And their claim that the game was free to play because they'd make money from commissions on XRP transactions, well, that just doubles down on the idea that their real business wasn't selling a game, but facilitating crypto trades.
Yeah, that model really puts the focus squarely on the crypto, not the gameplay experience.
Yeah.
Were there issues with actually getting the crypto out?
There were reports, yes. People claiming they were having trouble withdrawing or cashing out the XRPPL they supposedly earned through the associated app. That adds another layer of suspicion about whether the whole system was even functional or legitimate.
Okay, so given this mountain of criticism, especially the very detailed videos from Cyberboy, how did Ultra Games and the Paradise team officially respond?
The responses were revealing, let's say, and often contradictory. Initially, their reaction to Cyberboy was quite aggressive. Legal threats,
For what?
alleging copyright violation, basically just for him discussing the game, analyzing their public trailers and website, standard scare tactics, often used to silence criticism.
Right, did that work?
Apparently not, because later the tone shifted dramatically. They started talking about cooperation, even suggesting a collaboration in an email to CyberBY.
Wow, from legal threats to let's work together. That's quite a turnaround.
A very abrupt one. They also put out public statements attacking other critics like the YouTuber Jetro, falsely accusing him of trying to extort them, completely unsubstantiated claims.
Just trying to discredit anyone pointing out the issues.
Seems like it. And all the while, information on their website kept changing. Content that debunked their previous statements or contradicted their narrative would just disappear quietly. Made it hard to track the truth.
Covering their tracks, perhaps.
It looked like it. They also threw direct accusations at CyberBY, saying he was lying, even ridiculously claiming he was being paid by Rockstar Games GTA's developers to sabotage Paradise.
And paid by the competition conspiracy theory. Classic.
Textbook deflection. It got uglier, too. A supporter of Paradise actually doxed some of CyberBay's private information online and deliberately misrepresented his email communications to try and make him look bad.
That's crossing a serious line.
Absolutely. And alongside all this, the team and their vocal supporters often made really dismissive and disparaging remarks about gamers and critics in general, not exactly winning hearts and minds.
No, sounds like textbook behavior when you can't defend the substance. This whole mess really puts a spotlight on the platforms, doesn't it? Like Epic Games and Steam. What's the takeaway regarding their role?
It raises huge questions, and CyberBY has been very vocal about this. Questions about the responsibility these major platforms have. How much vetting do they do before listing a game, especially one with so many obvious red flags?
Right.
Paradise kept falsely claiming this close partnership with Epic Games, which Epic had to publicly deny. Eventually, Epic did temporarily remove the game from their store after all the community reports and evidence piled up.
So Epic did take some action, eventually.
They did, though some argue it took too long. But the frustration seemed even greater regarding Steam. Well, despite, mountains of evidence, countless reports from users about the misleading marketing, the asset flipping, the crypto issues, Steam seemed much slower to act or didn't take decisive action publicly. The game remained listed.
And that listing lends legitimacy, doesn't it? People trust Steam.
Exactly. Being on Steam or Epic gives a project a stamp of approval, whether intended or not. CyberBY and many others are calling for these platforms to have much stricter review processes.
Especially for games making huge claims or using risky models like crypto integration.
Precisely. And they need to be more responsive when credible allegations of scams or serious misrepresentation surface. The fact that Paradise stayed up for so long potentially misled a lot of gamers.
Okay, so after going through this whole saga, this deep dive into Paradise, what are the key things you, the listener, should take away from this?
Well, first and foremost, the Paradise situation really looks like a massive case of misrepresentation in game marketing. The evidence overwhelmingly suggests it was never going to be the AAA GTA killer it claimed.
The demo really sealed that deal, didn't it?
Absolutely. The demo, built largely from readily available marketplace assets, was just worlds apart from the promises. Second, that heavy focus on the cryptocurrency element raises serious doubts about the project's main goal. Was it ever really about making a game?
Or just about the XRPPL token?
That's the critical question. Third, the behavior of the developers, the threats, the contradictions, the attacks on critics, the shifting narratives, it completely destroyed any trust.
Yeah, their reactions spoke volumes.
They really did. And finally, this whole thing is a powerful reminder for all of us gamers to be critical, to do our homework, especially when a game seems too good to be true or involves things like crypto or comes out of nowhere with huge promises. Don't just believe the hype.
Absolutely. So this deep dive into Paradise, it really leaves you thinking, doesn't it, about the future of how games are promoted and what responsibility platforms like Steam and Epic truly have in protecting users from potentially deceptive products.
Mhm.
How can we, as players, get better at spotting these things early? And what can the industry itself do to ensure more transparency, more accountability? It feels like the Paradise story might just be a warning sign of more challenges like this to come in the digital marketplace.
It really makes you wonder. It prompts us all to be perhaps a little more skeptical and definitely more informed about where we place our trust and excitement in the gaming world.